Well, thanks, Maya. Good evening. My name's Phil Bluestein, and I warmly welcome you to tonight's program. This has been presented by what's called the WTM, Wellness Through Mindfulness. This was a group that we started in 2015 by a group of Calgarians interested in mindfulness and have freely arranged and presented talks on mindfulness and related topics. Originally, we had the ability to meet at the Shaganappi Community Hall in person, but with the advent of COVID, we have been very fortunate to partner with the Calgary Public Library, and I again extend my great thanks to Patrick Mealy, who allowed for this opportunity. We present the first and third Thursdays of each month by Zoom. We have a website called www.thebreathproject.org, and on this website are animated videos on how to do mindfulness and meditation and multiple interviews with mindfulness experts. There's also a WTM website called wtm.thebreathproject.org, and it is on this website that we store the recordings of the talks and guided meditations, our mindful musings and resources. And if you haven't yet, it might be of value for you to go to the website, and on the home page you can sign up in order to be notified of upcoming events so that you won't miss any of them. And in particular, we are in the process of planning a one-day in-person meditation retreat at the Shaganappi Hall on June the 4th. It'll be great to get back in person, so keep an eye out for what is going to come. The structure of the evening is that we'll have a presentation until 8 o'clock. Between 8 and 8:30 will be an opportunity for you to ask any question you want. And I think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of someone of Nicole's skill in mindfulness and meditation. There is no question that is stupid or wrong. And I can assure you the question that you are thinking of asking, probably a large number of people are also thinking about it. And it provides a great opportunity for us to talk and expand on the topic of mindfulness. So, to let you know what's coming up, April 7th, Christine Francoeur, one of our organizers for the WTM, is going to talk on who has time for mindfulness. We live in a world of overwhelm. How can we bring mindfulness into our daily practice? And what is the window of tolerance? On April the 21st, we have Is Your Approach to Spirituality Working for You? And we're very fortunate to have a very well-known Calgarian and international expert on spirituality, Dr. Bud Rickey, present. So that'll be a very special evening. So let's get to tonight's talk. And Dr. Nicole Libin, as I outline this history, really is an experienced mindfulness teacher. We had to shorten the CV, the bio, because it was going to go on to about 5 pages. So, so let me just tell you briefly about Nicole, because we're really in for a treat. Certified mindfulness educator, adjunct professor, author. She has designed and facilitated mindfulness curricula and other courses for mindful schools, Mount Royal University, and numerous private organizations. She was the co-creator and lead teacher for Mindful Schools Mindful Teacher Certification Program, training and certifying the next generation of mindful educators. She's been certified by Mindful Schools, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction for Teens, has trained with the Meditation Initiative, and has completed MBSR training with the world-renowned John Kabat-Zinn. She is also the author of 4 books, and some of these are available at the library. Her most recent one is Sticky Brains. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, the talk is on mindfulness for the overthinker. They say we have 60,000 thoughts a day. And I know for some of us, we feel all 60,000 thoughts all day, every day, over and over again. And Nicole is going to focus on some very practical tools in order to find more ease, balance, and contentment in our life. I'm sure this is going to be a wonderful presentation. I'm looking forward to it. And with that, I will turn the evening over to Nicole.
I have unmuted myself. Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Just give me something.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? You can type it in the chat if you want. You can just answer it for yourself if you want. I want to thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here. Thank you to Phil for reading my still too long bio. So I start pretty much everything, every class I do, everything I do with just a bit of a check-in. So when I ask, how you're doing, I don't mean it sort of in the, Canadian like grocery store way, like, how are you doing? I'm fine. I mean, how are you doing? So you might just take a second and just, if you want to close your eyes, you can. Don't have to change your posture. Just notice what it feels like to be you right now. What does it feel like to be in this body, to be sitting in this chair, this couch, wherever you are? Notice how busy or how quiet, how loud, how heavy the mind is right now. You might just notice any feelings that are present. You might feel your feet on the floor for just a moment. Maybe taking a deep breath, taking a sigh, a yawn, a stretch. And the thing about this talk is you don't have to leave this place of checking out how you are. When we do this, we're really trying our best to be as kind as possible to what's here. And the reason I always like to start this way is because it's kind of the only place you can start, especially when talking about something like mindfulness. Mindfulness is all about being where you are. So we can only start where we are. And for those of us who are overthinkers in the house, this is really helpful to us because most of the time our brains are telling us where we are or what we're doing is wrong, right? Like I shouldn't be like this. And so one of the reasons I spend so much time talking about practicing teaching mindfulness is because I need it. And there's something so lovely, so freeing in just being able to remind ourselves that it's okay to feel however you feel, that you can't get it wrong. And you don't have to get rid of anything. You don't have to make anything happen. You don't have to be calm. You don't have to be relaxed to be mindful. And really for me, like I mean it. I teach and talk about mindfulness because I need it. I am not a naturally calm person. I'm not naturally relaxed. I'm a chronic overthinker. Can you be an over worrier? See, I'm worried about that. I second guess, like I've got a trophy in second guessing. So on the one hand, I guess where I want to start with that because it's just where I'm at. It's who I am. But also because I think it helps For those of us who do overthink, there's a tendency to come to a talk like this and like want all the answers, right? Like you have a notebook, you have like pen already, you know, and like someone has all the answers, someone has it all figured out. So my reassurance to you is that no one has it all figured out. Not the person talking about this stuff or teaching it, not my teacher, not my teacher's teacher, right? No one has it all figured out. And so I want to start there and just give us a moment, maybe take another breath and just really honor where we are all at right now. Exactly how you are in this moment. However, frazzled, anxious, awake, asleep, caffeinated, over-caffeinated, under-caffeinated. Right? Let's take a moment and honor that being here, having the intention to be here, to be present, to check something new out, to explore something, that's enough. That matters. Being human is hard. Our brains don't come with instruction manuals, or maybe they come with, you know, thousands of instruction manuals in the self-help section of the library. It takes a lot of time and effort and courage just to show up for something like this. So I want to honor that and thank you for that. Now, the thing is, it's true that no one has it all figured out, especially like the people who do, the people who think they have it all figured out, they don't. But one of the challenges is that our brains think they do. Our brains actually think that they can solve everything. That's why we overthink. That's what overthinking is. It's actually not a mistake. It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's your brilliant brain doing what it does, which is think. And it figures, it's like it's trying to figure stuff out. So let's start there. Again, if we're honoring where we are, let's start with just honoring, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with me. God. So what does all that mean? Why is my brain doing all this thinking then? Something, I heard this a while back and it really struck me that generally speaking, and of course there are exceptions, but generally thinking, our brains are not designed to keep us happy. Some of you are like, yeah, well, duh. I know that from experience. Your brain's not designed to keep you happy. Your brain has evolved to keep you safe. If you're an overthinker, if you're here, it's probably because you worry, you second guess, you analyze things. Maybe you see the negative more than the positive, right? Those are all designed to keep us safe. Our brains have evolved to scan the environment all of the time for threats. They're not looking for the good stuff. They're not looking for dessert. They're looking for the thing that's going to cause us danger. It's a feature, not a bug. It's called the negativity bias. It's that piece, that part of your brain where, you know, 100 good things happen to you in a day and then one bad thing happens. And the only thing that you remember and are up, you know, thinking about at 3 a.m. is the bad thing. It's a feature. It's not a bug. Your brain actually really wants to help. And it doesn't know how to do so. Like, if just bear with me, sometimes I like to think of my brain as kind of a really eager toddler. And it's like a little kid. It's so eager. It's so excited. It just wants to help. It does not realize that it's actually making more of a mess by trying to set the table than not. And it does what it knows how to do, which is think. Right? So there's a problem. I'm feeling something. I feel uncomfortable. There's a, you know, discomfort in my back or some unknown. And my brain goes, I know what to do. I'm going to solve this. I'm going to think through it. And any of us who get caught up in worry, and I'll find, and when I offer some notes on this, I'll link to the study, but there's some studies that show that worry actually activates the same centers of your brain that pleasure does. Worry makes our brains happy because they feel like they're doing something. Like, I'm keeping busy, I'm accomplishing something, I'm helping, like the little kid. And I'll talk about, I'm going to try to make this really as concrete or as practical as I can. So I'm going to give some strategies and tools and stuff in a second. But the first thing I want to do is offer a quote from one of my favorite books, which is Winnie the Pooh. So much wisdom in Winnie the Pooh. So Pooh and Piglet are hanging out together, as they are wont to do. And Pooh starts talking to Piglet, and Pooh says, "Rabbit's clever," said Pooh thoughtfully. "Yes," said Piglet. "Rabbit's clever." "And he has brain," said Pooh. "Yes," said Piglet. "Rabbit has brain." There was a long silence. "I suppose," said Pooh, "that that's why he never understands anything." So that's what brains do, which means I don't have to stop my brain from doing what it does. I don't have to beat myself up. I am an overthinker. No, it's just brain is doing what brain does. So if I can see that, then it's not a problem. It's just my brain doing its thing. I might not like it. It might not be pleasant, but I can make it okay. So practical tools, how do you deal with that? One way to do it is to actually acknowledge your brain. You can use my language of the toddler. You can certainly find your own language. Go with what speaks to you. As a general rule, everything that I offer is just that. It's an offering. It's an invitation. You get to take it or leave it. Maybe you try it on, maybe you consider it, see how it fits, but it's entirely up to you. So what is it like? Maybe you check this out next time, 3 a.m, driving in traffic, right? Actually acknowledging your brain. Thanks, brain. Right? Thanks. You're totally hyperactive and you're trying to keep me safe. Find your words, not mine. What if it is like a helpful child or like an eager cousin? Pick the relative that you want. So I don't have to stop it. I can see that this is something that's happening. I'm going to talk about other bits of this. I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to try and get rid of it. It's not a problem. I can just say, okay, it's here. Great. And now what? So that's one tool or one tactic. Another one is gratitude. And you've probably heard this one before, right? And it's so simple and so effective. Gratitude, or even appreciation if gratitude feels too big. Gratitude also activates that same pleasure center that worry seems to, because it gives your brain something to do. Brains hate a vacuum, right? When was the last time it worked? You were worried about something and someone said, stop worrying. Has that ever helped anyone? Right? Like you're stressed and freak out and someone's like, relax, it's fine. Just stop thinking about it. Does anyone else get that comment a lot? It doesn't help because you can't. Of course I want to stop. If I could stop, I would stop. Right? And I'm not doing this on purpose. It becomes habitual. So I can't just stop it. And if I tell myself, okay, stop thinking, then what? Then the thoughts just come flooding in. So if I can replace it with gratitude, appreciation, even sensory practice, even just giving my brain something to do. So appreciation is a really nice practice because it does give the brain sort of that reward. Find 3 things that you're grateful for. They don't have to be big, right? I'm grateful for my family, for being alive, for the sun. I can also just be grateful for a sip of water. I can be grateful for an opportunity to talk about something that I really like talking about. Grateful that technology is allowing me to do this. I really like this desk that's right in front of me, right? It's a nice desk, but it's not a big deal. But like, I'm just touching it right now. It feels really nice. I can appreciate that. And that doesn't mean like ignoring the problem. It doesn't mean getting all Pollyanna on everything. It's the idea, it connects to an idea, positive neuroplasticity, which is basically, Phil mentioned sticky brains. This is what my kids' book is about. It's your brain gets good at what it practices. The more you practice calling yourself an idiot, your brain gets better at that. Most of the time, we don't even know we're doing it, right? The more I practice worrying, my brain gets really good at that. That's why I'm so good at it now. So the more I practice stopping and taking a breath, the more I practice finding something to appreciate, the more I practice saying, oh, okay, brain, I see you're just doing your thing. I don't need to take this personally. I actually get better at that. So the appreciation practice is such an easy one, and it's actually really nice to do to connect to someone else. It's just right now, right? Like as you're sitting here, can you find 1, 2, 3, 500? You get to pick the number. Things that you appreciate. Anything. And admittedly, if you're struggling, if you're in a challenging place, sometimes even that can feel challenging. And so what you can appreciate in that moment is the wish to appreciate something. Those are some tools that you can try out, see what you think. So we've gotten so good at worrying or overthinking or second guessing because our brains are built for it and because we've practiced it a lot. But that is actually good news because it means there's nothing wrong with you. You aren't broken. And it means that you have the power to decide what you want your brain to get good at. Right? It may be naturally better at things like seeing the negative more than the positive, but neuroplasticity tells us like our brains are like plastic. They're moldable. You can physically change the structure and the shape and the function of your brain just by paying attention. That's amazing. So little baby steps, you're not like overhauling your whole life, but a tiny thing where maybe first thing in the morning, instead of immediately reaching for my phone and looking for my email or reading the news and seeing all the bad things, just taking a breath, feeling the blankets, seeing the light, it's lighter now out now in the morning. So the more you practice something, the better your brain gets at it. And this is one of those you fake it till you make it things a little bit. You tell yourself a million times over, I love you, I love myself, I'm doing great, I'm doing the best I can. At first, you may not believe it. At second and third and fourth, you may not believe it, but the more you practice it, the neural pathways will follow. But again, don't take my word for it. Check it out, see what you think. And all of these things, this is why I said, no one has this all figured out. All of these things just take practice. And it's like, the first time you play a musical instrument or the first time you do any sport, right? You're probably not very good at it. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. It's the same thing with all of these things. So if it feels impossible, like there's no way I can do this, you start small. 1 sip of coffee. Can I just enjoy this 1 sip of coffee? Can I one time, like a minor little thing, someone's late for something, okay, my brain is overthinking and that's what it's supposed to do. And I can let that be okay. Unpleasant and possibly okay. And breathing. So that leads me into this next piece, which I hinted at before. thinking isn't the problem. Or maybe it's not a problem until we decide it is one, we make it one. So there are all sorts of different definitions of mindfulness. The one I really like is that mindfulness shows us that there are two things happening in every single moment. There's what's happening, and there's my relationship to what's happening. And most of the time, I can't change what's happening. But if I can see it, if I can be aware of it, then I might have some say in how I relate to it. And honestly, that changes everything. Because the truth is, we don't control most of what happens to us, right? The dog barking outside, the weather, COVID, politics, our bodies. We don't control most of what happens to our bodies. Our emotions, how many, like, are you in charge of your emotions and your thoughts? So we don't have to get rid of any, like, it's not about, oh, I have to stop having thoughts. You have to shut her down. But I can choose how I relate to it when I notice that the overthinking is happening. We're thinking beings. Thinking is what keeps us alive. It keeps us safe. You're logged onto Zoom and you do your taxes and all of those things. So we don't have to get rid of the thinking. And if we change how we relate to it, then it's not a problem anymore. And here's the kicker, maybe. You can't think your way through thinking. Has anyone ever gotten to this point where you, like, I've watched myself do this, where I have a problem and I think, if I just think through it the right way, then I can be done. But even if I come up with an answer, I just keep like hamster wheel going again and again and again. You can't get rid of thinking by thinking. You cannot stop thinking by thinking more. That actually just fuels the problem. All right, I got a LOL, yes. Okay, sweet. So the thing about this is, it's like, there's this simile in the Buddhist tradition, the simile of the arrow. And basically the shorthand of it is that, if a person gets shot by an arrow, that's going to hurt, right? But if a person gets shot by an arrow, a second arrow in the same place, that's going to hurt more. So the first arrow is the inevitability of life, right? We stub our toes, car accidents, hearts get broken, things happen. Our bodies hurt, our emotions hurt, so on and so forth. That's the first arrow. It's said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Anyone ever heard that? There's another one, a teacher, Shinzen Yang, says that suffering, it's pain times resistance equals suffering. So what we tend to do is we see that we're thinking, or we see that there's an issue, and then we think about it. And then I feel bad about the thinking, and then I feel bad about feeling bad. And then I think about how that is, and am I just this type of person, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden I've been shot by, 86 arrows. So thinking about the thinking just adds fuel to the fire. So instead, what I'm going to try to do is change my relationship to the thinking. Right? So we already talked about this. It's like, hey, brain, thanks for trying to help me. You certainly use your own language. Mine is often a little bit salty, but like, brain, you're nuts. Thank you for helping me. I'm going to take you from here. Another option is just invite it along for the ride. It's like, hey, thinking. Oh, of course. It's like, hey, I expected you to be here. You're always here. So I'm just going to invite you along for the ride. Take a seat, have a cup of tea. I got to do this thing. I don't need to give you that much focus. Again, this is really easy to say, and it just takes practice. What we're trying to do is sort of break the momentum of the thinking. So that's where mindfulness or meditation, the practice, comes in, because they're asking us to be aware of what's happening. If I can see that I'm starting to go down that slippery slope, then I can have some say in what's happening. If, to mix my metaphors, if the train has already left the station, it's probably too late, right? I don't know that I'm overthinking until I'm stuck in the middle of it. So one way to approach this is to try again to change the relationship to the thinking, to the thoughts. And there are a number of traditions, especially Eastern traditions, where thinking is a sixth sense. Right? So there's hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. And so just like right now, you're hearing things, most of you, I assume, right? You're hearing me talk. Maybe you're hearing a car pass. You're hearing a dog bark. You're hearing family in your house, in your apartment, wherever you are, right? And usually, for the most part, we let the thoughts come, or we let the sounds come and go, right? The car passes, I hear it, I let it go. So with respect to thinking, one of the things we're trying to do, particularly if you practice meditation, is to just let the thoughts be like sounds that come and go. Right? Okay, there's a thought. Okay, there it goes. There's a thought. Okay, there it goes. It's like sitting on a riverbank and just watching the boats or watching the paddle boards or whatever it is go by. It's like watching the thought stream. So rather than getting caught in the content of the thinking, that which fuels more thinking, like the story or the narrative, it's just, there's a thought, there's a thought, there's a thought, oh, I'm thinking that thought. Okay. So that changes the relationship to it. Now, lots of the time thoughts will come and go, and a lot of the time they won't. Right? Thoughts get sticky. We get stuck on our thoughts. So if you feel stuck on a thought, again, it's not, I can't have to get rid of it. Why do I have this thought, right? Like I'm a bad person. That's just more thinking. That's more second arrows. Instead, I can look at the process of thinking rather than the content. Focus on the relationship. Right? Have you ever paid attention to what a thought is? What do they look like? Where do they come from? Right? It's a totally different way of relating to our thinking. You can actually do it. Maybe we'll just for a second, if you want. You can do it right now. Again, you don't have to change your posture. You can close your eyes if that feels okay. Maybe you take a deep breath. And if I say that in this moment, you're allowed to think as much as you want, let the thoughts just come. You can notice what happens. It's an interesting thing that often when we try to get rid of the thoughts, that proliferates the thoughts. And when we allow them to be there, then they go away. So for now, just indulge for another moment. Just see what your thoughts look like. Do you see your thoughts? Is it a visual? Is there a picture? Maybe you hear your thoughts. You might feel them. If you see them, can you identify where you see them? Where is the screen? If you hear the thoughts, is it loud? Is it your voice? Is it someone else's? If you feel them, where do you feel them in your body? Do they come more from one side or another? I'm just going to give you another few moments. Just notice what it's like to think. What's the process of your thinking? Okay. This is an activity you can do for a very long time. I'm just going to give you a few seconds for it. Now, whatever that felt like, whatever you noticed, whatever came up, it actually doesn't matter. We're not trying to analyze, oh, I see images, so therefore I'm this person, which is what we tend to do, right? It's very interesting. But the idea is that even if you couldn't tell anything there, like even if you're like, I have no thoughts, or I don't know where they are, or I can't see them, any of that, you still changed your relationship to them. Because you weren't focusing on what's the content of the thinking, you were interested in the process of the thinking. So that's one option. Another one is to look at what's underneath the thought. Often thoughts are a manifestation of an emotion. So if I'm sad, or let's say I'm worried about something, that all these thoughts are going on, what's really going on in that moment is I'm afraid. There's a lot of fear here. And fear, it might be unpleasant, but it's something that is happening. Like I can be with it in this moment. I can feel that in my body. Another option for this is to use inquiry. Like what is this thought? What is it made of? And then one of my favorite questions, is it helpful? Do I want to be thinking this thought right now? The answer is almost always no. Now, that doesn't mean the thought's going to go away. It will come back. I can almost guarantee it. But even just asking the question gives you that tiny bit of space. I am not my thoughts. Right? I actually have some power over this, even if it lasts for a microsecond. There's a thing you may have seen, if anyone, if you have kids or your teacher in education, there's that think acronym. The first time I saw it, it was written that way. So that's how I always picture it. And it's like before you say something or before you post something on social media, I think you're supposed to ask, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it, I think the I is inspiring. I always forget the I. Is it necessary? And is it kind? Now, I'm not saying you have to ask that about every single one of your thoughts. You're not going to. But just like, is this helpful right now? What would I be like without this thought right now? Who would I be without this thought? And even just asking the question again just gives you a little bit of a space from that. Now, obviously, some thoughts you just have to think, right? You're not going to ask yourself, is this helpful? Is it kind, for every thought that you have to have at work or like making your kids lunch? This is for the hamster wheel thoughts, the 3 a.m. thoughts, the thoughts are not helpful fundamentally, but like you feel like you can't help thinking them. Right? Okay, my brain is doing this thing. My brain is on this hamster wheel. I can see that there's a lot of fear going on. I can just feel what that's like in my body. I just want to take a second. There's a lot of actually very beautiful, very authentic and vulnerable stuff that's going on in the chat. I don't want to ignore it. Thank you. Thank you, Pam. I did get the I think I got the I right. I'm not ignoring what's going on in the chat. I want to get back to, there's a couple of really good questions Maria has asked and Christina has offered just some really, really beautiful stuff. I'm going to follow what I've been told to follow. So I have a few more things to say, a few more practices, and then we can get to some of these more the more personal questions, because they're really, really important. And one of the things I think that comes up in a talk like this is things can be too general. So we have lots of time at the end for questions. I just want to acknowledge those. Christine, I really want to get to your question now, but I'll save it to the end. because I hear you, and I've been there. It takes a lot of courage to ask a question and to offer what you've offered. So the last piece that I want to share, last main piece, I guess, is that it's not personal. Right? So what we tend to do, especially us overthinkers, is we tend to feel something, experience something, have a moment, have a thought, and everyone does this, but we tend to do it, maybe we do it better. And we take it personally, right? Oh, it's just me. I'm just a bad person. I'm just a this person. Other people have it figured out. I can't do that. Right? There's a line, maybe you've heard it, comparison is the thief of joy. Right? Therefore, social media is the thief of joy. Slight tangent. But it's not just comparing ourselves to other people. It's the shoulds. It's comparing myself. I suffer. I unintentionally might rob myself of joy because I tell myself this moment shouldn't be like this. And most of my suffering comes from believing this moment is wrong. I'm wrong in it. This moment shouldn't be like this. And the truth is, this moment is like this. And it might be terribly painful, very uncomfortable. It might be the most beautiful moment ever that doesn't last forever, right? And we have this tendency, we make everything become self-referential. So I take it personally. Oh, I have so many negative thoughts. I must be such a bad person. Why am I such a bad person? Other people aren't this bad. I shouldn't be like this. So for what it's worth, it's not you. You're not alone. And you don't have to blame yourself for it. And if that resonates, I'm sort of speaking to the me in the crowd. If that resonates, maybe you write it down, underline it, because you'll hold on to it for a second and then brain will come back and be like, oh, but that applies to everyone else, but not you. Right? Put it on a Post-it note. The more I take thinking to heart, the more I blame myself for it, the more I actually cement it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, I get good at what I practice. So the more I practice that line of thinking, the more I'm likely to repeat it. But I'm also fueling it and then encouraging it to come back. Thoughts themselves actually do come and go. So do emotions. So does everything. But the more I take them personally, the more I hate them, the more I resist them, right? Pain times resistance equals suffering. The more I believe that that's actually the way things are, I'm just a bad person. And then they become cemented or fixed. Then the thoughts become beliefs. And to be clear, there's no part of this that is saying, well, then it's your fault. Because it's not. This is not you. This is not about blame. We are not alone. It's not you. It's being human is hard. And we just have not been given the tools to deal with it. And Barbara's writing in the chat about the self-compassion. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, like we need, in those times of mega suffering, what we don't need is more suffering. And what we usually tend to do automatically is beat ourselves up for feeling bad, right? And then we feel bad for feeling bad, and then we're back to those arrows. So the idea here is it's okay to feel this way. This feeling is here now. I can hate it, but I'm hating it like that rather than like I hate it. Rather than resisting it. It might still be really, really unpleasant. But the more I fight it, the more I hate it, the more I actually tighten up around it. I've used this example before. It's like if I'm trying to get rid of something, like this is the striker for my bell. If I'm trying to get rid of it, what I tend to do is like hate it. And then I want to get rid of it. And why won't it go away? And like you can't fully see, but like my hand is starting to hurt from holding on to this so tight. I'm hating it so much that I'm holding on so tight. I'm resisting it so much that I'm actually holding on harder. Ooh, that does hurt. So I might not ever be able to get rid of it. Again, it's not about changing what's happening, but if I hold it, it's hard to see with the camera. Like I still have it here. It's still weighing me down. It's still affecting me, but I'm not tightening up around it. That's the changing my relationship to it. So Phil said 60,000. I've heard you have anywhere from 50 to 100,000 thoughts a day. How many of those do you ask for? Just think about it for a second. Whatever the number is, it doesn't matter what the number is. Let's say you have 50,000 thoughts a day. Actually, let's cite Phil, 60,000 thoughts a day. How many of those do you purposely ask for? But I don't know the number, right? We could try to think of a percentage. I can't even imagine. But then how many of those do you blame yourself for? Or take personally? Right? Why did I think that? Oh my God, I'm such a bad person. Or why can't I get rid of this thought? I'm such a terrible person. There's something wrong with me. Right? Even though there's something wrong with me, that's a thought that comes up so easily for so many of us automatically. I didn't ask for that thought. So I am trying to see that I don't have to take my thoughts personally. I don't have to blame myself for them. And at the same time, I can empower myself to see that I have some tools to be able to give myself some space from those thoughts. And sometimes the space is literally a breath, half a breath. And sometimes you can get a lot of space. And so we start really small, little thoughts. Just noticing what it's like to think, noticing how we tend to take it personally. Letting go of some of the shoulds. Changing our relationship to our thinking. So some more tools. Again, one of the ones I mentioned, just trying to see thoughts as that thought stream, seeing them come and go. Just like, okay, now the dog is barking, right? Sometimes the dog is barking doesn't bother me. Sometimes it drives me crazy. Same thing with my thoughts. When I feel stuck, the thoughts are the things that fuel the emotions. The thoughts also fuel themselves. But if I can just allow myself to feel however I feel, right? Check out what's underneath the thoughts. There's something that's very soothing in that. Right? It said that the physiological response of our emotions lasts for 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Right? When was the last time you were angry for just 90 seconds? I laugh because there are things that I'm not actively angry about, but like I've been angry about for way longer than 90 seconds. Like a few years, decades, something like that. So why do I if an emotion only lasts for 90 seconds, why do I let it? How does it last for so long? It's because the thoughts fuel it. You know, I feel something and then the thoughts go, but what about, but they didn't, but then you should have, right? So what I'm saying with this is feeling my body, the emotions in my body in this moment and allowing myself to feel that takes me out of my head, out of the thoughts and into the present moment. Right? It's if you've ever had a good cry, they're so good, aren't they? right? What's the difference between a good cry and a bad cry? We don't even call it a bad cry. The good cry, you just let yourself cry. You just really you release it and it's gone. It doesn't mean the problem it goes away or the issue goes away, but you're not thinking about, what happens next. You're just letting it go. And so if you find yourself really stuck in the thinking, one option is to just let yourself feel how you feel. And then going into compassion. So there are all sorts of different resources for compassion, mindful self-compassion. Kristen Neff does have, I think the website is mindfulselfcompassion.org.com. Google mindful self-compassion, it's the first thing that comes up. But the idea of compassion is seeing that really it's made up of these three things. One is kindness, one is mindfulness, and one is common humanity. So Barb wrote some of these beautiful phrases in the chat, right? Kindness is, it's okay, right? It's okay to feel like this. It's okay not to be okay. Being human is hard. Common humanity, I'm not alone, right? That sense that there's nothing wrong with me for feeling this way, that your mind will tell you there's something wrong with you. And then the mindfulness is the awareness of it, right? I can see this suffering right now. This is a moment of suffering. Now, all of this is hard to share because when you're in that moment of suffering and when you're really overthinking it, you don't have I don't have the wherewithal to remember it. So that's why we practice it when we're doing kind of okay. That's all ultimately what meditation is about. You practice when you're okay. Well, it's one of the things that meditation is about. You practice it when you're okay, so you have something when you really need it. So if everything is overwhelming and you can't remember any of these things, there are a few that you can do that are maybe a little bit easier to remember. One of them is just, as I mentioned, just focusing on your body and your senses. So just even right now, like if you're feeling, whether you're feeling overwhelmed or not, feeling your feet on the floor. Checking out how many toes you can feel. Going for a walk. Right? Getting outside, especially now when you can, getting outside, going for a walk, getting some space, feeling your body, moving, a 1-minute dance party. Anything to do with your senses. So some of you might be familiar with that, the sensory activity where you look around and you find 5 things that you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things that you're touching or can feel, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Again, the numbers don't matter. It doesn't matter what you actually are sensing, but it gets us back into our bodies, into the present moment. So if thinking just feels like just crazy overwhelming, I can't get out of it, I'm totally trapped in this. Compassion, kindness, compassion, and your somatic, your sensory experience of getting into your body, stretching, dancing, walking, running, exercising. All of that might feel overwhelming. So just like swaying, giving yourself a massage, which we all probably need. And then moving on into some of the questions that were in the chat, because now they're on my mind. But one other really nice thing that actually combines those two, the compassion and the body experience, there are all sorts of very self-soothing postures that you can adopt. And one of them is just to give yourself a hug, which is quite lovely. But my favorite one for me and my experience is you can take a hand and you can place it just around your chest, in the area of your heart. And you might just do this. This might feel enough, sort of just feeling the weight of your hand. This itself is very soothing. And there are various options for this, but the most simple one is then you take the other hand, and you can't see, you place it in the area of your belly. So you just have one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, your abdomen, your stomach. And just holding yourself the way that you would hold a loved one, a best friend, a child, an animal, if they were feeling, the pain that you're currently feeling. It's so much easier sometimes to take care of other people. So that's actually another tool is, what would you say to someone else if they were experiencing what you're experiencing, if they were stuck in the thoughts that you're feeling. So underneath all of this is the last bit I'll say. Underneath all of this, the foundation for me for a mindfulness practice is wisdom and compassion. So you get to decide. You have wisdom. You get to decide if something is helpful or not. And then for us overthinkers who've already second guessed and analyzed, like, well, I don't know if it's helpful or not because I've thought my way through this and I can't see straight anymore. Been there. Wait. As hard as it is to say and to hear, wait 24 hours. I have a pattern I've noticed of myself where I overthink and immediately come to conclusions when I do anything new. Anything. Like I'll go on vacation, really like a nice holiday that I've been looking forward to, and I get there and there's something with the place and I don't like it, and my brain immediately goes into catastrophe mode and it's the worst and I hate it and we have to leave and I'm going to cut the trip short and I don't want to do this and so I have a deal with myself that I don't follow, but it is a good rule, which is I'm not allowed to make any decisions about stuff for 2 to 3 days after the thing has started. It's time dependent, right? So if something's small, maybe I wait 5 minutes. If it's something major, I'm going to wait a week. And all of this is just about kindness, compassion, and practice. Right? No one is immediately going to change their relationship to thinking. So start small, right? Sit in traffic and watch your brain go crazy sitting in traffic, right? That person's in my lane, that person took rather than it's like, okay, can just watch this crazy thought stream and they don't have to take it personally. Okay. So I want to get back to, I think Phil's going to come on to talk about questions, but I want to get back to the questions that are here.
Well, that was an amazing talk. And thank you for sharing and being so honest about being an overthinker. And you certainly sound very well qualified to give this talk. So we're now going to go into the question and answer component to this evening. And I would invite everyone who has a question that they would like to ask, please enter it into the chat now. Again, every question is of value. So we'll start. And this is the first question. It seems to have multiple components to it, Nicole. It starts off with way more bad things happen to me than good things. My problems just seem to never leave, though. It seems like for the rest of my life, I'll always be someone who fell for evil lies and got taken advantage of. What if nothing you do makes you feel safe? What if the only thoughts that make you feel safe are thoughts of killing yourself? Because it seems like it's the only way to end never-ending suffering. People act like it's no big deal if I kill myself, though, because I've made too many mistakes. So can you address this, Nicole?
So I have a million thoughts. I'm going to share a few of them. My caveats, you're never supposed to start with caveats, so of course I'm going to start with caveats. One is that this is, we only have so much time together right now. I'm happy to continue talking about this if that would be helpful. I'm going to give my contact information and email address, but this is anyone who's going through so much suffering, so many challenges in their lives. It's so hard, and it's so hard to hold all of that inside yourself. And so it's Christina. I hope that that you have resources, a therapist, someone to talk to, that you can really dive into it with, rather than I'm going to do my best, but I know I'll fall short just given the time and the forum. I'm going to go back to what it sounds maybe trite, but being human is really hard. And it's really painful. And sometimes it's so painful that all you can do is just make it through the day. And in those moments, just making it through the day is the most courageous act that you can do. Doesn't matter if you shower, doesn't matter if it's not about accomplishing. It's just, I got up and I took a breath today, and that was enough. And sometimes, and I have this experience, and sometimes it just sucks. It just sucks. And it's just about getting through it and putting one foot in front of the other. And that doesn't make it better. That doesn't maybe give you the answer. What I try to remember when I'm in places that feel have the same tone as what you're describing is that it's okay to feel terrible, that I'm not alone. Even though I feel like when you're struggling that much, you certainly feel alone. But there's something about reminding myself that it's okay not to be okay. And not everyone's going to get it, and not everyone's going to understand it. And some people are going to say stupid, horrible things. I just want to find your other. Often if someone, so Christina, you wrote, people act like it's no big deal if you kill yourself because you've made too many mistakes. It's a big deal. I don't know you, and it's a big deal. You're a big deal to me. You're very important to me. And what I've learned in the past little while is that usually what people say to us has nothing to do with us and everything to do with them. Right? They don't have the time, or they don't understand, or something like that. So I would encourage you as much as possible, hopefully to find a resource, get some help. And if you don't have a resource or have a therapist, we can, I don't know what we can do, but I'll do something. But some of it really is just finding those little things. Like, I'm not going to make my whole day better, but is there a book that I like that I can be reading? Is there a stupid, like old 80s, 90s romantic comedy, something ridiculous that I can appreciate in a moment? And sometimes it's just sort of putting that one foot in front of the other, knowing that it's okay to feel this way, that I am not alone, that it's not going to last forever, even though it feels like it. And doing my best to take care of myself, right? Getting up, breathing, going for walks, talking to someone who I can trust. It's not talking to those shitty, sorry, crappy people who everyone makes mistakes, everyone screws up, and it's never too late. But it's hard, and it's hard for everyone. And I know what you're talking about. I do, and I don't. I know what that, like, I have experience with that feeling. So I send you so much compassion and kindness, and you are not alone. And we do our best. And sometimes our best is literally just waking up, making it through the day just so I can go back to bed. But I'm going to do it again the next day. And the fact that you showed up, all of you, whatever you're going through, whatever thinking is going on, the fact that you showed up and you came here, it takes courage and heart. And it means you're doing your best. And it means that you're doing enough. And sometimes how much am I allowed to swear? Sometimes I relate to my brain like a bully. I don't usually use the word bully, but I'm going to try and keep it more PG. My brain is sometimes a bully, and I just don't have to listen to it. Bullies thrive on attention. So sometimes I say, like, okay, I just, like, no, I know you're not telling me the truth right now. And that's where help can be really, really useful, because someone else is going to, like, tell you, actually, you're seeing the world through glasses that are filtered. Allowing ourselves to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone is doing their best. And a lot of the time there's no manual. So we just do our best, and we fall, and then we get back up again. And I'm just blown away by the courage it takes for all of us to just keep getting back up again. There's, again, so much more I can say on that. I'm gonna stop it there. No one has it all figured out, and no one has been through life without making a ton of mistakes, especially, again, those people who think that they have it.
Christina, I'm just going to add one last comment. Everyone here has felt your pain. And I'm sure that it's touched all of our hearts. Mm. And I want you to know that in just hearing your story, that we really do care and hope that you do well. And that mindfulness is not the answer for many things. And we'll just leave it with the fact that with this degree of pain and suffering, it really is important that you seek out help that can be of service for you. There's a question here. How do you get rid of a negative thought that will not leave your mind? This is the mind that ruminates, and all day long you keep coming back to that same negative thought. So how would you deal with that, Nicole?
There are all sorts of different strategies. And some of it depends on kind of what the thought is, what your relationship is to the thought, how long you've been having the thought, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Often what happens is when we have a negative thought, right? There's there's a distinction that's made sometimes in a number of traditions between what is pleasant and unpleasant versus what is positive and negative. And one of the ways that we can approach, negative thoughts is by seeing that they're just really, really unpleasant. Right? Wow, like this is so unpleasant. It doesn't mean it changes the thought, but again, it might change the relationship to the thought. So I can, what that a lot lets me see is like, wow, this is so painful. Maybe, again, it depends on the thought. This is so painful. It hurts so much, and I don't want this anymore. And often what happens with the I don't want this anymore is my example of like tightening up around it, right? I don't want to think this thought anymore. And the more I do that, the more I actually think it. So paradoxically, the way to get rid of something, and you want to do this without trying to get rid of it, but it's the paradox of, instead of trying to get rid of it, I'm going to turn towards it. Now, there are all sorts of, like, again, sort of it matters. And what was it? I think it was Maria who wrote this. So Maria, if you want to write in the chat, if you optionally, entirely optionally, but if you want to maybe get more specific. But one of the ways that we can do this is, instead of like, I hate you, I'm trying to get rid of you, it's like, okay, I'm here. What do you have to say to me? That sounded very confrontational. It wasn't meant to be. But the idea is that we try to get rid of these parts of ourselves that feel so unpleasant, when actually what they need is our care and attention. So if it's a thought that's like a person, a self-judging, self-effacing thought, it might be an opportunity. If it feels like, okay, if you're feeling brave in that moment, if you're relatively, I use the word stable, right? Like I know when I can handle things, and I know when it's just time to go find a good book and not pay attention to it in that moment, go for a walk. But I might turn towards it and just go, okay, what's really happening here? What's underneath this thought? And usually, if we're calling it negative, it's something like fear or sadness. Might be anger. My anger might sort of be the first bit, but usually underneath the anger is something like, I'm afraid. Guilt. We have all these very powerful emotions. And so one of the ways that you can look at a negative thought, something someone else said to you, yeah. Okay, I'm with you. So one of the ways that we can look at a negative thought, and this might apply here and now might not, is to turn towards it, right? Like imagine that this part of you and what's underneath the thought, this emotion, this feeling, it's like a little baby or a wounded animal, like something you're just going to take care of. I've felt this maybe not as much so with, I have the worries, and then underneath the worry is anxiety, right? Anxiety feels so unpleasant, really tight, and a lot of movement. And so I try to, I use that posture sometimes and just try to hold myself. And it's like, okay, if this was my kid when she was a baby, this was a little puppy, like how would I hold it and take care of it? That's one option. When it's something someone else said to you, again, I'm not going to ask you more details, but again, it depends on your relationship to the person, what's going on. One piece that I try to remember is that usually what someone says to me is not about me. Right? There's that phrase, hurt people hurt people. I've seen this so clearly in the last few months. It's something that's going on personally, but I see that, okay, yes, this hurts. What they said, you hurt me, this hurt me. And this isn't about me. You've said something that is about your pain, your hurt, your suffering, your something, and I was just in the way. And so I'm going to feel compassion that you are hurting, and I'm not going to let you. I use this phrase a while back. You get to decide, do I want to let this person live rent-free in my mind? So especially if it's not someone, my chat's over here, someone that you're not very close to, it's like, okay, I'm not even very close to you. You said something that's like stuck in my head, and I'm just letting you live rent free in my head, and I don't even like you that much. I'm being a little bit silly about it, but it's that idea of looking at the thought, like, do I want to be thinking this right now? You know, am I letting this person get in my head because they lashed out at that moment? So some of it is just seeing it rationally. Okay, rationally, this person said something not nice to me. I don't need to take their pain on as my pain. Then the other bit is, this hurt. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that I'm not close to them. Someone said something that hurt. Maybe it was a trigger. Maybe it felt really close to, close to the chest. So I can let myself feel sad. I can let myself feel hurt, and then go into something like self-compassion. Like, it's okay to feel like this. It's okay to feel sad. And I get to decide what I want to do with this person. So checking out what's underneath the thought is another option. Then there's a whole list. I was actually doing this in one of my classes, but there's a list of 5 things you can do sort of to deal with thinking. Some of it is replacing the thought. Some of it is gratitude. Appreciating that you're close to someone else whose opinion matters more to you. The last one on the list is just like, it's like whack the thought away. This is sort of only in emergency circumstances. But sometimes it's helpful. So sometimes I find myself thinking of something and it's like, this is just, I know it's ridiculous. I know it's just because I'm tired or something. And it's just like, no, I am not thinking, like I actually yell, no, I'm not thinking this right now. And again, it'll probably come back to like, no, I'm going to go do something else. And then get active in your body or find something else to do. It's the last resort. It's kind of like the emergency brake, but it's yet one other option that you can sort of play around with. And then a couple more sort of pragmatic things I can offer. One is to write stuff down. Things they do that hamster wheel thing in our brain because we haven't worked our way through them yet. So actually talking to someone, if that feels comfortable, or writing something down, even just even you never have to see it again. Writing an angry email, don't send the angry email, write the angry email, getting it out. Some of that just lets you sort of complete that thought. That was a very long answer, but hopefully, does that help? You can answer yes, no, maybe so.
Okay. I'm just going to offer one other thought about that. It's when someone is angry with you and you get upset, sometimes there's something within you that has been triggered by the other person, that there is some wounding that you have that is now being triggered. And so if you get upset because of what someone else does, this is an opportunity to actually look inside of yourself and ask, why am I being triggered? There was a comment here about, and I think you answered it as a strategy, Nicole, choose to pay attention to a positive thought. In your summary, you just went through the list of ways you can deal with the problem, and someone here just said, choose to pay attention to a positive thought. Anything else about that, or is that okay?
For me, I find if I'm really stuck on a negative thought, a positive thought's like is never going to make it. It has no chance of getting a foothold in there. So if that is a strategy that fits, amazing, right? Gratitude, appreciation, anything. But for me, I find like if I'm really just stuck on something that feels like really sort of feels a little nitpicky, move your body. swear by it. Go for a walk. And it's okay. Like you might, the first half of your walk might be like you, if you're me, maybe you've seen me in the park walking, right? I'm just like, talking to myself and yelling at people and then I work my way through it. And then you'll watch because the thoughts will come back. It'll be like, but what about, like, no. I dealt with you. Like we done. And someone said it, someone said my therapist said identify them as effective or ineffective. I've used like skillful. Is this skillful? Is it helpful? Do I want to be thinking this right now? Like, do I want, if this is of someone who's hurt me or something, like, do I want to let you in my life right now? Is this the hit, the hill I want to die on? So, someone asked a question about sense of humor. Can I talk about the use of humor as an aid?
Sure, go right ahead.
I don't want to lose this question because I love this question. We take everything too seriously. We tend to. And mindfulness or meditation or like a talk at the library or, like, oh, I'm writing something about comedy. Okay, I'm going to take it really, really seriously. I think if humor feels like it fits for you or it feels like it's a possible avenue, I'm a huge fan. We don't have to take this seriously. And in fact, the overthinking, the brain thrives, the thoughts thrive on being taken seriously. So one of the tools I use, William, I don't know if you use this as well, but I've tried to use this one where like it's like I'm a old, I don't know, for me, it's like the 80s, 90s radio announcer. Like, this is our top 10 list, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe they still do this. I don't listen to the radio. But like, try to identify my top 10 thoughts. And like, what's number one on the hit list? Like, what's my number one, what, the number one, oh, it's like, okay, you're an idiot because, there you are, like you've made it to number one, you're top of the charts. Oh, sorry, number two, like, oh, you're mad at your someone. Sorry, you lost, maybe, maybe you'll make it up to the top of the charts next week. Something like just anything that gives a bit of a spin on it. So that's a challenge. Like, anyone can go spend the next week and like, what is my number one thought that I get stuck on? All right, what's number two? What's number three? You can write them out. You can put them, I don't know, make a poster of them, something like that. But then when they come up, it's not, oh, I'm kicked in the stomach because, this thought has that same impact every time. Now it's, there you go, number one, nice work. All right, I will give you a gold star. Oh, sorry, like you didn't make the gold star today. So I think anything with humor, and well, I guess within reason, but anything that allows us not to take ourselves so seriously, because it's an antidote in some ways to this is my fault, there's something wrong with me, I shouldn't be like this, right? There's nothing funny about any of that. There's nothing funny about those very, very painful, harsh statements. But if you find your top 5 shoulds, right? I like this phrase where we should all stop shoulding all over ourselves. Like, what are your shoulds? Oh, I shouldn't be this. I should be this. I should be taller. I should be thinner. I should be bigger. I should be whatever. And then when they show up, like, check mark. So so yeah, all about the humor. Go for it.
Quick question. Did you say that negativity bias is a normal human quality?
I'd say hell yeah. Now, yes. So I don't have, I can't back this up with like peer-reviewed sources, but negativity bias is something that is a fundamental part of the way our brains have evolved. Our brains have evolved to scan the environment for threats. We do remember negative things more than positive things. Now, having said that, that is sort of the underlying conditioning. There's other more immediate conditioning for many people that goes on top of that, where they've been trained to or have trained themselves or have been conditioned to see negative things in a bit of a different light. And sometimes that's a religious upbringing, sometimes that's a cultural upbringing, a personal upbringing. So yes, negativity bias affects all of us to some degree or another. How much it affects us is going to depend on all sorts of other factors.
Nicole, I think we're coming to close to the end of the evening. This has been an absolutely
Mm.
wonderful talk with multiple tools. Perhaps you might finish the evening with a brief summary, some take-home points that people can use when their mind starts talking to them incessantly.
Breathe. Key takeaway points. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to believe me on that, and it's still true. That your brain thinking is a natural process that is trying to be helpful. You don't have to stop the thinking. Stop trying to stop thinking. Instead of, it's like we can't stop the, John Kabat-Zinn said, you can't stop the waves, but we can learn how to surf. So we're trying to use our bodies, use compassion, see thoughts for what they are, focus on the process of the thinking rather than the content. And ultimately, you're doing your best, and that is enough. That is my key takeaway. You're doing your best in every moment. And if all you're doing is breathing, you are doing your best, and that is enough. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Nicole, this has been wonderful. I think everyone is so thankful, and certainly the WTM is very appreciative of the fact that you have come here tonight and freely offered your time to all of us to learn some very effective techniques. This talk has been recorded, and it will be posted on the WTM website within 1 week. A thanks to Maya again, who so wonderfully helps us on behalf of the Calgary Public Library. There will also be a written summary of this talk posted on the WTM website in due time. Just to remind you that on April 7th, Who Has Time for Mindfulness is being presented by Christine Francoeur, and that will be a wonderful talk. I want to just close and say 2 things. I think it'd be important, if you like what the WTM is offering, is to go to our website and to sign up, because it will make things much easier for you to be aware of what we are offering to you in terms of our talks and our hopefully upcoming retreat on June the 4th. The last comment I want to make is we have been doing the WTM now for since 2015. And historically, this was done in person at the Shaganappi Hall. In the last couple of years, we have done this with Zoom. And because of Zoom, because we have Meetup, we have incurred a lot of cost that we did not have prior to meeting in person. And we now have someone that we pay as tech support in order to put out our notices, in order to upload our video recordings. And as I said, everyone that works at the WTM, in terms of the organizers, in terms of the presenters like Nicole, freely offer their time. And if you feel that this has been meaningful for you and that you would like to help support us in continuing to offer these programs for you, then just please go to our WTM home website. And on the website, on the home page, is a donate button. And anything as small as $5 or more, or whatever you feel is appropriate, would be appreciated. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and in particular, Nicole Libin, who has given a great talk. And we do look forward to presenting again on April the 7th to you. Thank you very much.